Hello, Dr. Matt Worthington, clinical psychologist based in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. The world has been hit very hard by this disaster, this humanitarian disaster, biggest humanitarian disaster to hit us since the Black Plague, probably even worse than the Black Plague, to be honest with you. And I feel that Australia has not been prepared properly enough. We've had so many mixed messages. People are confused and terrified. It's not the people's fault. It's not. To me, this is like the Titanic, where you've got the ship, the Titanic, and you've got the captain, and a lot of his crew are obeying the captain. And you've got this one officer off to the side, let's call him Bill Bowtell. Let's say he's had experiences of icebergs and what have you, lots of experience of icebergs before, in other words, viruses before, and advising people. And he's saying to the captain, Captain, we've got messages from other ships, there's icebergs all over the place and the ships are being hit by them. And some of them are sinking. You know, some of them are being torn to bits by these icebergs. They're huge, very, very dangerous. And we could be sailing into them. Well, we are sailing into them, actually. What are we going to do? Should we get the lifeboats ready? Should we get the life jackets ready? No, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll be all right. This was the message up until just a few weeks ago. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. Let them play football on the deck. We'll be fine. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here. We'll be fine. Well, Captain, you know, there's the thing about icebergs, like, you know, they're often a lot bigger underneath than people would understand. They're huge. You know, they just show a little bit to begin with, and then boom, there's this big thing that comes just out of nowhere. And obviously that's another way of saying what exponential growth is. Basically, it starts off sort of very, very slowly, and then boom, off you go. And Bill Bowtell has been shouting at the government, saying, we need to prepare, you know, you've got to do this, based on his years and years of experience. And to me, he's being ignored. But why? Why is this guy being ignored? Puzzles me. And then he says, you know, the iceberg is hit now. What should we do now? No, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Or should we get the lifeboat ready now? No, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Maybe just get one ready over there. We'll be fine. Yeah. Well, there's other icebergs hitting us now. Yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. But why don't we steer away from them? Oh, no, we'll be fine. And you know, and they wonder why people are terrified. It's because they're getting all these mixed messages. You know, there's such a thing as YouTube that people are looking at and going, oh my God, what the hell? They're looking at other countries and seeing this happening, but for some reason, Australia's going to be immune from this? Why are the governments not paying attention to a previous health advisor that advised previous governments on viruses like the SARS and what have you? I find that really puzzling, really puzzling. I find also very puzzling that the government is telling people not to be terrified over the toilet paper thing. It's not the toilet paper. Again, this is a complete misunderstanding and ignorance and naivety of human nature. It's what the toilet paper represents. People have been conditioned to be terrified of germs. Conditioned by who? The big anti-germ company, or the big companies that sell products like toilet paper, like disinfectant, like the gels that you wipe everything down with. So we've become terrified of germs. Everything is bad. Everything to do with bacteria is bad. Well, here's something for you. We are 99% microbe, 1% human cells. So actually we are 99% germs. There you go, right? 1% human. So basically, by wiping away all these, by just being conditioned by television advertising, by the movies, media, government, whatever, back through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, people have become conditioned that we mustn't have germs. We mustn't have germs. No. And now they're saying, oh, you can put your hands in the soil and you feel good. Well, of course you will. That's because of a bacteria, I think it's called M. vaccae. I might be wrong, but it makes you feel good. Right? That's not the only reason, obviously. I mean, just touching the soil and what have you, you're going to have sensory experiences and warmth and what have you. But what I'm saying is we've been conditioned to be terrified of having germs, and that's what it's about. That's why people are terrified. And not knowing that, or not showing that you know that, and not offering compassion around that, and saying, don't panic, that just shows a complete lack of understanding. It's the wrong message. We know you are terrified. We know you are terrified of having germs. We've got lots of toilet paper, or this is what you can do as an alternative. In Asia, they don't have toilet paper. They often use hose pipes, little hose pipes that you can connect up to a sink or something to wash yourself with. Personally, I think that's a lot more hygienic. Anyway, it's not about the actual surface issue. It's about the deeper meaning, which is around, am I going to be safe or unsafe if there's germs around? That's what it's about. And a lack of understanding of that, it's just ignorance. And people in power need to know this, should already know this stuff. And then to minimize someone's terror of dying because of germs, and they've been conditioned to believe that over the years, to minimize the terror they're experiencing, that's ridiculous. Take responsibility for the conditioning in the first place and suggest alternatives. And show maybe big warehouses, here you go. Right, at the very beginning, 4 months away or 5 months away, that should have been shown. Or educate the public on alternatives. Like the food situation. Again, this should have all been planned for, and I believe there's lots of food in Australia, but this should have all been planned for. We should have had drills. We should have been having regular drills, not just in the last 4 months. I'm talking over the years. I mean, you have regular fire drills. We have first aid training, don't we? We have first aiders. We have mental first aiders in the workplace. Well, why don't we have drills for viruses? I mean, these are some of the oldest organisms on the planet, like billions of years old. Why didn't we have drills for these? We even had drills for nuclear war and nuclear bombs. It's ridiculous. Plus, this ignorance around what trauma is and how to treat it. The ignorance around that is ridiculous. I'm so frustrated because there's going to be so much traumatic stress from this that comes from this. There's going to be so much trauma. And the lack of effective trauma knowledge, it's just disgusting, to be honest with you. It is disgusting. And I'm so disgusted and angry by it. I actually came up with the idea for a traumatic stress task force with an international. I mean, don't get me wrong, this isn't up and running yet. I've just got some people. Because I'm so frustrated with the lack of knowledge in government and in government departments, health departments, in private practice. I trained at Boston Trauma Centre for 9 months, not face-to-face, online. And when Dr. Bessel van der Kolk was there, He is the #1 guy in the world for trauma, for PTSD. He got PTSD on the map, right? And he wrote the Bible called The Body Keeps the Score. And he gives lots of interviews and what have you. And he's in this famous article called "If You're Trying to Overcome Trauma, you may be going about it the wrong way," written by a family therapist in America. And to quote him, he says, "Trauma has nothing whatsoever to do with cognition. Nothing whatsoever to do with cognition. It's to do with a breakdown in the physical synchrony, meaning all the systems that were operating together, like an orchestra, playing together. It breaks down, so it's like the string section falls over. But they get back up again, but they don't quite play in tune like they were before. They can still play a tune, but they're a little bit off. And the more it happens, the more off they become when they're trying to play, right? They still try though, right, to work and stuff. And the more trauma we have, or the bigger trauma we have, it's like a wrecking ball coming through the theatre where the orchestra is playing and just bashing into the orchestra. Remember the orchestra representing the different physical symptoms, like the microbiome and the gut and the immune system, the nervous systems, and the various organ systems and what have you, and including the brain and the rest of the body, the muscles, all of it. And it's like this wrecking ball comes in and just basically just knocks it all to hell. And then they all get up and get on the chair again. They're all dazed and everything. Oh God! And they get back up again, and they keep on playing. But there's a string popped out here, and there's a hole in the, there's a hole in the drum, or they've lost a stick or whatever. Well, this is what trauma is. It's mostly down to the immune system and the microbiome. It's also other stuff as well, of course. But this is what trauma is, right? And there are certain strategies, techniques, gut health, behavioral techniques to really help, which can really help people. I'm not saying they're a cure for trauma. And when I say by help, I mean help to manage their symptoms. Now, they're not for everybody, but there's some really effective techniques out there, very effective. But guess what? Hardly any of them have anything to do with thinking or talking. I'm not saying that that's not important. Of course it's important. Of course it's important to connect with other people. But if there's just more effective techniques that can help manage more quickly, and people can do them at home. And these should be out there. These should be out there. These are not new. These are effective. These techniques are taught to militaries around the world. This is good stuff based on lots of research by, Bessel van der Kolk, another guy called David Berceli, and lots of microbiome research by Professor Ted Dinan, who coined the term psychobiotic. These are brilliant people. So I developed this trauma task force to pressure governments to update their knowledge of trauma and treatment of trauma, and to pressure educational establishments like universities that provide health training, to pressure them, and hospitals, and anyone that deals with trauma, law firms, anybody, really pressure them into educating themselves to learn about what trauma is and how to treat it or help people to effectively manage their symptoms. Now, obviously, there's medication and that stuff as well, obviously, but it's body focused. If you think about it, medication is going into your body, isn't it? It's changing your body, it's changing your biochemistry. Well, that's what trauma treatments do. It's not just medicine. There are other things as well. I'm not saying we shouldn't take them. Of course, I can't give any advice on that at all. I'm not a medical doctor, right? I'm saying body stuff, body focused stuff is the key in treating trauma, right? And that information just isn't out there. And it really, really frustrates me that it's not. And so I got this traumatic task force together, and I sent out a few emails, and David Berceli replied, the guy who's one of the top trauma experts in the world. Professor Ted Dinan replied. brilliant, fantastic. We've got Dr. Matt Bambling, brilliant, gut health, clinical psychologist, fantastic. Dr. James Erskine, clinical psychologist, lecturer in the UK in London, brilliant. Teaches at St George's Teaching Hospital, and he lectures to medical doctors. Brilliant guy, very clever guys. Alan Nygen, integrative pharmacist, brilliant on gut health. He can supply products by post, like supplements and what have you. Sorry, just touched my face there. I do apologise. No touching face, right? Got to be aware of that. Alan is brilliant. I'll put a link to his website. He has this biotic website, and he can advise on probiotics and things like that for your gut. I've got the guy Steve Phillis from Victoria that's a state in Australia, and he's the biggest supplier of neurofeedback equipment in Australia. Neurofeedback is brilliant for trauma. Helps the body to move towards a more balanced state. That's all the body wants to be in, a more balanced state, and neurofeedback helps it to do that. It's computers and sensors and things, and it's pretty cool actually. I've done it extensively, and it's really helped me. And Steve is the biggest supplier of these machines, and he's also very trauma aware. He's an educator. He's been involved at high levels, very senior levels, with community education and services around trauma. Brilliant guy, amazing, very compassionate guy. Lots of common sense, and that's what I'm going for in this traumatic stress task force. I've got an emphasis on common sense, compassion, and authenticity. Common sense, compassion, and authenticity. And I've got I'm going to have to touch my face. I've got a scratch something here. And here, sorry, I do apologise. So, common sense, compassion, and authenticity. And I've got another slogan: every hour counts. Every hour counts. So that means that we've got to have very few restrictions, very few barriers to getting access to effective treatment or to just connecting with somebody, just to take the stress off a bit, just to take the heat off a bit. When we get shut down, I mean, most of Australia is now shut down, I believe, and it's going to happen to us soon. It's going to be like a pressure cooker in a house, especially if you've got kids, if you've got relationship issues and existing trauma already from childhood or wherever, military service or whatever source of trauma it is, being attacked, whatever. This is going to be, this could, the symptoms could intensify because of a person's feeling trapped, confined. They need to be able to talk to somebody. So there should be very little barriers. And this is another thing about the traumatic stress task force, is to influence governments to reduce the barriers, the restrictions around accessing a psychologist. And also online, I mean. And so I put this team together. Another part of this is like, in addition to the guys I've just mentioned, which are, I've just mentioned Ted Dinan and Steve Phillis, James Erskine, and Alan Nygen. And it's in addition to David Berceli. In addition to those people, I've got this other team that are pushing the government. Are going to push the government to reduce the bureaucracy around accessing what's called telehealth sessions, which are going to be bulk billed. That means the government pays for them, so the client doesn't have to pay for them, but the psychologist can be, paid for by the government if they have a special number. It's called a provider number. But at the moment, there's too many restrictions around accessing psychologists online. I mean, 4 months. This should have been sorted out years ago, really. There's no reason why anyone can't have a telehealth session. It's ridiculous. This is a problem with overregulation. Right? We've got too many regulations, too many barriers. the type of person that creates overregulation is an anxious person. They like to create rules. Rules, stop change from happening. They restrict change from happening. And that's what this overregulation is. It's because of anxious people. They like to maintain control. They like to maintain control, and they do so, if they get into government, by writing policy upon policy, guideline upon guideline, regulation upon regulation. And you've got this like barbed wire fence you've got to hatchet your way through in order to get any change. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And this is why, people are perpetually suffering because of all this over-regulation. Oh, you got to write a report. Why? There's thousands of reports out there. Just go and pull one off the shelf. No, you got to write a report. That's the way we do things. Why, though? It's just repeating what everyone else is saying. So there's too much bureaucracy, and this is one of the reasons for the Traumatic Stress Task Force, and one of the reasons for this other team I've made. I'm not going to name them yet because they might not want to be named, but they're helping to put together things to pressure the government to reduce bureaucracy around specifically clients accessing telehealth sessions with psychologists, and also additionally to what they're doing is they're pushing the government to reduce bureaucracy around psychologists working from home. It's so bloody, again, more regulations. We're in a war situation. This should have been changed. Now, I'll be honest with you, a few days ago, I contacted the department, Medicare, which helps to, pay psychologists and other clinicians. And if you need this number to be paid by Medicare, you need this number called provider numbers. It's like a checking system, right? You say, look, this is my number. Can I be paid for this session, right? And if the government pays, a certain amount of money, and the average is like $84, which may sound a lot, but it's not really after you take all your fees out and stuff and everything else. And basically, you can have something called a bulk billed session where the client doesn't pay anything and the government just pays the $84, or if you're a clinical psychologist, you get a bit more. I think it's $124 because you've done a bit more training, but to be honest with you, we're all generally the same thing, really. And there's a bit more knowledge around assessments, I was going to say around trauma, but not really, around mental health and what have you. And but even so, general psychologists have to have extensive training anyway. So I reckon we're all about the same, to be honest with you, with experience and stuff. Anyway, so we've got this situation, we've got this over-bureaucratic, over-regulated system, which is just far too over-regulated. And I called the other day trying to get a provider number. And, I was told by the lady, you've got to sort of fill out this form, I thought, why? If I'm in my office, I can generate one instantly, get a provider number instantly. Because I'm home, and I want to have one from my home, I have to go through this paperwork trail thing. Why? We're about to be hit by a massive we already have been partly hit by a massive virus. The iceberg is cutting its way along the ship now. Why do we have to still do letters and stuff? I mean, are we living in the 21st century or what? It's crazy. We should just be able to send an email off. Bang, done. Or why can't we just generate one instantly? We're already accredited by the government. We've already got numbers. They can check us up. So anyway, the lady was quite nice, and she said, look, go to this form, and da-da-da-da-da. And to be honest with you, I was busy, and I forgot to do it. So I went back to the website tonight, do you want a home? Do you want to have a home? Yes. Well, you can't have one. You've got to write a letter. You'll fill out an application form, you should say. So if you want more details, go to this page. Went to that page, not working. The page isn't working. It says page not known or something. What? It's either crashed or it's a dead link. What the hell is going on here? And this is another frustration. That's an example there of the need to pressure government to make these changes, which should have been made months ago. Months ago. It's ridiculous. The stress is going to go through the roof. I have been sending emails to MPs for 2 months. I've been in the paper twice about this and about the Traumatic Stress Task Force. The first time, beautiful story written about the need for telehealth. Initially, it was on paywall, behind a paywall, but I had a chat with the journalist in my view, and they released it. Right, it shouldn't have been behind the paywall anyway. It's disgusting that it was actually, but apparently that was the policy. And the next article I did was on the Traumatic Stress Task Force, the International Traumatic Stress Task Force, and where I'd invited the people, like I said before, Ted Dinan, James Erskine, Alan Nygen, David Berceli, Matt Bambling, all these wonderful people, Steve Phillis, wonderful people. And, did a lot of work, and the journalists did a story together behind a paywall. Can't get that one released. Why? This is humanitarian stuff. Why are we making money out of this? It's not like the company needs the money. We're in a situation which is like probably bigger than the Black Plague. Why are we keeping this stuff behind a paywall? It's wrong. It's not right. And again, this is to do with, I don't know, greed, ignorance, whatever. It's not. It's wrong. It's wrong that stuff like this is behind a paywall. I mean, what's the point? What's the point in doing all that work and you send a link to someone? They can't see it unless they subscribe. Why should they have to subscribe? I never even got to see the story, by the way. Couldn't even fact check it. Isn't that disgusting? That's from one of the biggest news corporations in the world. And I couldn't even see the story, couldn't even read it before it was put online. That's disgusting. So that's the sort of stuff we're talking about as well. It's this sort of like, well, what is it anyway? It's just trauma, this ignorance around it. Oh, we'll put it behind a paywall. And again, this just, further evidence of they're just not really understanding what trauma is. It's massive. It is massive. It's the iceberg. It's the virus. It's the tsunami. It's the earthquake. But it's also, to cause trauma, minimal things can happen. Minimal thing, like a raised voice. Looking at a child with a parent, looking at a child where the parent has a still face for 2 minutes. That's very distressing for a child. And if you didn't know that, that's not your fault, by the way. We're not told about this at school. We're not told about this generally. And whose fault is that? It's not the people's fault. It's the government's fault for perpetuating this ignorance around trauma. But the government are people too, aren't they? They're just people. They're just people. But they are people with a great responsibility. It's not just about turning up and writing policies and guidelines and stuff. It's about being human. It's about being a human being, having common sense and compassion. It's not about control. Yes, we need to have some control to maintain stability in society, but not excessive control. We need compassion as well. It's not enough just to put a poster on the wall and say, we'll help you. You actually really need to be authentic around that and live to the message that you're giving. And don't give mixed messages either in times of terror. Give proper guidance. People in leadership have a great responsibility. Not just for the economy, but for the human beings that make up the economy. You wouldn't have an economy if it wasn't for the human beings in the first place. It's not just about, sending kids to school. I get the message. I understand there's some legitimacy in that. Right? But what about the teachers? Why should the teachers hold the responsibility of the nation? Why is it their job to do that in a time of war? This should have all been planned for years ago. We have antiviruses on our computer, don't we? There are departments working day and night to protect computers from viruses. Well, why don't we have the same for human beings? Why don't we have departments planning day and night for this? We think more of our computers than we do of human beings. Where does the word virus come from? And a living organism, and it's the damage, and we freak out, don't we, about the damage a computer virus to do. Well, why don't we freak out when we get a human virus? It's because we're not taught about it. And we don't have it in our memory, or what information we do have, it's information which is telling us it's not serious, it's just a flu or a cold. So we go to that information and we come up with an answer. We go, it's just, that's all the information I've been given. By authoritative figures, my parents, teachers, whoever. So that's what we go with. So the responsibility is on our leaders to properly educate and to understand human nature. And to listen to people like Bill Bowtell. Also, I brought on another wonderful person today from the UK called Maureen Fearon. She helps people with trauma using various behavioural techniques and what have you. But she's very influential in the media, and she's on the BBC a lot. So she's going to be heading the traumatic stress task force over there in the UK. She's got a good media presence. And she's going to be doing a bit in England over there, and coordinating some stuff as well. So hopefully we're all going to be coordinating together. So guys, look, Traumatic Stress Task Force International, otherwise known as a World Mental Health Organization, and I do apologise if someone has already got that name. Traumatic Stress Task Force International. That's what I'm trying to build. If someone wants to donate to this, I'll leave my email at the bottom. I haven't got a website yet. Basically, this is just evolving day by day. It's just every day. I'm just like, as the things change here as well. I'm just trying to move forward, and just trying to build this. It's a bit like it is a war, and just adapting to it day by day. So guys, like I said, I'm going to leave my email. I don't want any money from me. I mean, I've got my rent and my food and stuff to pay for, but believe me, I would do this for free. Seriously. When I say donate money, what I mean is towards educating government, towards whatever resources we need to educate government and universities to change, and also to provide effective techniques that people can use in the home to get us on the media, to get us out there, because this is gonna be absolutely essential. Like I said, I'll do it for nothing. I am skint. That means I've got no money, right? No money. But I don't want money. I just want to help people, and I want to help people by educating the world about what trauma is. I want to get big names like Bessel van der Kolk involved, as well as the big names I've already got, the beautiful people that are already on board. I want to get Bessel van der Kolk and Stephen Porges, these wonderful human beings on board. Peter Levine. I want to get Naveen Jain on board. Beautiful people. I would like Steve Bannon and Jack Maxey to be involved. These people. Now I know they're already busy, and they've got a lot on their plate already doing what their stuff, and they do a wonderful job, and I understand. If anyone can just share that, if you can just share this video, maybe to some big names, so we can get some big names behind us, just to help push change, not only in Australia, but all around the world. Like I said, a World Mental Health Organization, Traumatic Stress Task Force International. We need big names, guys, big names. So if you know someone who's influential and has got money and power and is compassionate, and as a human being, I'd love to get Miles Guo on board. Miles Guo. Brilliant guy. Brilliant guy. If anyone can get him on board, God, it'd be fantastic. Fantastic. Just having his name be amazing. And the names of all the people we've got are just brilliant. Okay, guys, look, stay safe. Make sure you've got enough food. Try and get as much food as you can. And I'm going to put Alan's website at the bottom so you can ask him about supplements and stuff. Stay hydrated, it's really important. Protein, very important. Try and look after your gut and your immune system, which is mostly in your gut. Try and exercise if you can, yoga if you can. It's really good for you, very, very good for you. Don't forget to have your mineral powders and things like that. And try and stay safe, guys. Try and stay safe. And hopefully we're going to get through this soon. And we'll be on the other side soon. We're going to stick our chest out and our shoulders up, and we're going to march strong. And we're going to be strong, and we're going to march into the sunshine. We're going to march through this storm and into the sunshine again, because there will be sunshine again. There will be. Okay, so you take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon. Bye.